accident happened on a rural property. It was about 5 acres. So she ended up in the pool area and she was in the water for up to 15 minutes. So she actually sank to the bottom of the pool. But I got the call and I just fell to the ground. And the person I was with was also a parent and told me to get up. They're like, the nicest thing I can tell you to do is get up, because if you don't, you're not going to. And they drove me an hour and a half to the hospital. So when I got to the hospital, they could tell from the look on the face whose child was mine. And I went to the emergency room and my daughter was just shy of her 3rd birthday. There was a blanket over her, I could see her foot, and then there was just rings of medical staff around her. The first night after they stabilised her as much as they could, they pulled me into a meeting room and told me that they thought she had global brain damage, which meant there wasn't a part of her brain that wasn't damaged from the accident. But they had to wait and see, so they'd put her into an induced coma. She ended up being in an induced coma for about 5 days. Oh, it's changed our lives completely. At first it took away all her words, so she didn't have anything except mum and no for about 12 months. I got her to the point where she could parrot some of the words, but she couldn't say anything independently. She had to go through intense speech therapy, and you know, I'm grateful. I had schools, I had daycares, I had everyone on board to try and help support her to get to where she wanted to be, but it's been a lot of work. On top of that, she's got executive functioning issues, which is something that she will always be overcoming, and that's just processing issues. And for the first 12 months to 24 months, she had chronic fatigue. So she could play for an hour and need to rest for 3. So when you're talking about toddlers that are always on the go, that was a hard watch. To live in trauma is the hardest. I think as a family is one of the hardest challenges that you put through. For me as a single parent, I was in charge of getting 3 kids through horrific trauma on my own. There's a lot of, everybody responds to grief, and it's still a form of grief differently, so I kind of had to cater for each child differently. I was lucky in the fact that I had a community of support to help me out. Jewel, with her executive functioning, she doesn't need a teacher's aide in the classroom next year. She's pretty independent. Yeah, she's a lot more like a child her age than she was, you know, at the start of all of this. At the start it was unknown whether she'd get her words back. It was unknown how she would handle school, and she's in a public school system and she's thriving. I think people need to understand, which is, I don't like the term near drowning, and the reason I don't like that is when you're telling the tale, the amount of people will go, oh yeah, I nearly drowned, or my child nearly drowned because they fell in the water in the pool and I had to like get them out. And I'm not negating the fear that comes with that, but that's not the same as a non-fatal drowning. And so I think I want people to understand that your child doesn't have to pass away for there to be a trauma associated with a child who has had to fight for their life to come back from a drowning. I think it's really important that people understand that for children, the temperature of the water or the season makes no difference. They're still going to be curious and they're still going to see water as fun, so vigilance has to happen all the time. Be vigilant. It's like 100%, I understand that drowning is every single parent's greatest fear. But that, from my experience, means that people tend to get lax and believe in swimming lessons, or my child can swim. But there's a million things that can happen. You know, children can play, children can slip. Just 100% be vigilant, because it isn't worth your life being changed over.